Of course, the next session is on the e-contracts advantages and disadvantages. This is going to be more of my experience here that I am going to talk on this. And of course, the floor is open. Anytime, you can ask queries. I mean, we will try our best. We'll all put together our head and try to solve the problem that is being posed here. And so, as I was talking about the e-contracts, we always, receive these queries about, we need to have a standard template given to us. Usually, I receive in my mail. Despite the fact that I have all my standard documents, all my standard contracts in a website, always, from my geography, they come talk to me, and they call me up, or they send an email to me saying that I need this document. So I ensure that more so especially more so when we are in a product business, software product business, and my agreements, especially the product agreements, are very dynamic in nature. They keep changing with the requirement, with the experience that we have, which we gain on a day-to-day basis. And these product agreements keep changing, and so I keep on updating my model agreement. But when I keep on updating, I should also update my repository or my intranet which I have. That is one side of it. The other side is once the documents get executed, usually the legal department is the custodian of all the documents. Especially Raj in HCL, I had that experience when we wanted all the documents to be in one particular place, because it was at some point it was lying in US, some executed documents was lying in US, in Singapore, in all the places. We wanted that all these documents should be accumulated and kept in a single fireproof, the earthquake proof and all the proofs locker, and you have that in your locker, and you should be, the most important is, you should be able to retrieve this document. Storing it is different, storing it is easy. But the most critical aspect in this is you should be able to retrieve the document. In case of, say, any disputes, or in case of, not even disputes, in case of if you want to follow. You have a master service relationship agreement signed in, say, 2000, and you are working, say, for 10 years based on the work orders. So what happens over a period of time is, you will not be able to recollect, you will not be able to get the master service agreement. Nobody knows where the agreement is, with a lot of churn in the employee strength, with a lot of people leaving the organization. You may not know where the master service agreement has gone. And the brain who had drafted the agreement may also not be there. So what is left behind is a SOW, which is always renewed every year, or every 6 months, or 1 year, or 2 years, whatever it is, and multiple SOWs. So most of the time, the project owner, I always say that when I sign off on a document, I close that out, and I look forward to the next deal. I'm not the process owner for that. When I sign off on a document, the process owner is the delivery team, who is the process owner. He has to know what he has committed in the document. So before I sign off, I ensure that my delivery team knows what is there in the document. So similarly, what happens is, now once the master service agreement gets executed and is in the locker, all the delivery teams keeps on working on the task order or the SOW or the statement of work that we call. Everybody loses tracks of the master service agreement. And this work order that we have keeps on multiplying every day, every year it keeps on multiplying. And one fine morning there will be a dispute which we have to fall back on the master service agreement, which we had signed, say, 6 years or 8 years back. So now we have to keep on searching where the master service agreement is, or I have got a better option for you, is where we are talking about this e-commerce or e-contract advantage. In our organization also we had this software. There are various terms in an agreement which are critical for you. You may want to see which is the jurisdiction. Now we were talking with Rahul and Manoj that there are two different entities in two different geographies, but the English law may be the governing law. Usually the SOW doesn't cover which is the governing law. once the once a difference of opinion comes in, creeps in, and the steering committee of both the teams start sitting together, you already sense that there is something wrong happening. If the legal department is proactive, they will try to retrieve the document and see which is the governing law, whether you have a arbitration procedure or whether the courts will rule, or all the stuffs, the legal department would like to see. So now the question is, you have to track the documents which is there in a safe custody. That becomes very difficult. So this is one example that I am giving. You may want to see similarly a hiring. This is a very notorious, especially in software industry, where your resources are always poached by your competitors or your clients. This is a very bad example. Your resources will be working for your client one day, and fine morning, next morning, you will see that he has resigned from your organization. He's working for the same client in the same place, but getting paid by the client, but not by you. So this is a very bad example. You don't have an option because you have the larger business interest into account. But at the same time, you cannot sit idle and watch the experiences or happenings. So you may want to fall back again on the contract to see whether you have a non-hire clause or a non-solicitation clause. And similarly, there is some other problem which creeps into that, and you want to see what is the maximum possible liability that you could have in a document or in an agreement. So that again, limitation of liability is not generally covered in a SOW, because I always prefer to have limitation of liability addressed in a master service agreement. So you don't have that in the SOW. So these are some of the clauses which we would always want to go back to the master service agreement, and it may be practically be impossible to retrieve it every time and see what you have. Keeping a Xerox copy is not going to work, because you will lose track of it. So what is the e-contract procedure says is, has as a provision is, it will plug in all the major clauses. And of course, it is very flexible, because, clauses which may not be major today may be major tomorrow. So I should have provision to, plug in those clauses as well. So all the major clauses should be in one particular repository. I want to retrieve, for example, say, Polaris agreement with Polaris on a particular day. So I have a search, exhaustive search, which is very comprehensive search, which says that if I put the name of the client, say for example Polaris, I want to search for this Polaris. So I'll put Polaris. All the master service agreement which I have with Polaris will be flashed in my screen. And I click on the agreement which is critical or which is the subject matter of discussion at this point of time. I click on that particular document, and I try to retrieve what are the information, what are the clauses that have. And this is very fluid, and what happens, the advantage here is this passes on with the organization. It's not a individual specific, or it is not, if the individual changes, the system also dies out. It's not that way, it passes on. In fact, there is in fact, the next, another process in some organizations they do is contract negotiation also happens through this software. Usually, many organizations send it through emails, and once the person leaves, the email also dies. Usually the repository, email has to be got back, but what if the email is deleted? So to avoid all this risk, what happens is usually, I'm sorry. Sorry again. To continue the negotiation through this software, what happens is, and also to keep a track of what are the negotiation that has happened, who are the process owners, and who have taken a decision. Usually, for limitation of liability, we accept that as per the industry standard, you must be knowing that we accept, say, 1 year's revenue or value of the statement of work or value of the particular project. But sometimes the client may not be very generous with you. The client may insist that give me 2 times the value of the contract, or sometimes even unlimited. But if you don't accept to the client request, then you don't, that may be a deal breaker clause in a negotiation. So So some authority in your organization, either it can be a legal head, it can be a commercial head, or it can be a business head, who will take a decision whether we can go ahead with this limitation of liability, which the client is insisting on, and close this deal. So if it is through emails, and 5 years down the line you lose track of it, who has taken a decision on that? So you need to know a process owner, you need to identify the process owners for each of this. If it is through this software, the entire negotiation will be in the trail. Negotiation trail will be there, and the entire negotiation, what you had responded, what the client had responded, what your internally you had taken a decision, all this will be in the trail, software trail. It becomes much easier for you to retrieve these documents and identify the process owner who had taken a call at that point of time. So this is one of the major advantage of, I'm sure nobody can discount this advantage. This is very critical, and every one of us at some point of time would have felt the need of this particular requirement in our negotiation or in our strategy. So see, there are many softwares in the, I don't want to name one particular software here. You want to pitch for my company's software? Yeah, we have in our Polaris, we have a software called Intellect Process. I think it's Intellect Process. Yeah, everything. It will capture the entire thing. So, Intellect Process. I don't know, Bijan, maybe you can get in touch with one of my sales guys who will help you out. He will have a much better idea than what I have. And he will certainly do a good bidding, I'm sure on that. Okay, now, and the other thing is, other thing which we need to, for our personal sake also, nowadays, what we see is, lot of requests comes into our organization. At least I am flooded. If I take a day off in my organization, I have to put in 2 hours extra the next day to check my mails in a BlackBerry. So lot of mails comes into my department, lot of requests comes into my department. If we are able to keep a trail of all this, if I am asking that how many contracts or how many requests did we all clear in the last 1 month, maybe, maybe in this gathering, maybe we'll be able to say, I don't know how many, but we'll be able to say some level. But again, we have to think back and we have to go back to our mail and see how many we have responded, what has come back. We need to keep a track of all that. And if I ask how many have we responded 1 year back, then that is a tough job. But this particular e-contract procedure will help you out because the entire thing is in the software. All the flow, except for your forward mails, official mails, which you should not exchange, but you always exchange. All the other official works will be in this software and you have a trail of it. So if I want to retrieve information or track the transaction which I had done from 1/1/2007 to say 31/1/2007, in the month of January, what are the transactions that I had done? I shoot a query into this software. I get a response of what are the transactions that I had done in that. So this, I am sure, has got a lot of advantages, into built into that, and and especially, you must be seeing when most of you, when you interact with major firms like major companies like IBM and Microsoft, they have a SOW reference number. You must have seen at the top right hand side, and or a agreement number, reference number. What is this is, this is what this software helps in generating, because every printed document that they generate will have this reference number. So now what happens is, in future, if you want to fall back into this particular transaction, see what has happened in the trail, if you put in that reference number, the entire trail of that negotiation, the entire documentation, all the related documents, MSA, MPSA, all the stuffs, all the agreements, who all were working in that particular project, everything will be retrieved in that particular reference number. That is the purpose of having the reference number. I don't know how many of us use reference number for each of the documents that we clear, but this software will certainly help out. Because in our fast, stressful life, we most of the time when, I'm sorry if most of the time when the marketing team is breathing down our neck, with due apologies to the marketing team, anyone here? Yeah.
A document management system without investing, so much into new software. And at the same time, I think, would you tell us something about e-contracting in the light of IT Act 2000, Information Technology Act 2000, kind of electronic commerce or contracts which are valid, and how it talks about that e-contracts, valid e-contracts, digital signatures.
Yeah, of course. I'll be covering this answer. So, what I was telling was, when our friend Raj wanted to, as he says, investing in software, yes, that's again a cost. And sessions in future, Raj is going to tell rather how you could avoid such investment and still draft contracts in a much faster way. Raj, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
It's kind of right. Right. So that is what he is going to, present in future. But again, as you said, yes, that will be helpful. But again, it depends upon the organization to organization on whether you want to invest in that particular software or not invest. It's a judicial decision that every one of us. Yeah, Raj.
Where, let's say, if an organization has 10 or 20 or 50 offices and contracts are negotiated in all of those offices, contracts are executed countrywide or worldwide, it's possible through that software that people can upload the signed contracts, they will read the central repository, and the authorized person can again refer back to those contracts. It's something similar to SAP, but much cheaper.
Yeah.
That kind of software is available.
Yeah, Raj, you are right. In fact, I was also told by my delivery team that there are various free software also. In fact, you don't have to invest in cost also in that.
Not a free software. I'm not talking. There is much
Cheaper software.
Level of security. Not everybody can access. Contracts are confidential.
No, it's not. I'm not talking about public domain. Availability of the documents in public domain.
Even within a company of, let's say, 5,000 employees, so everybody should not have access to
Right, you're right.
all the pricing parts or
Right.
other parts of the contract. Only authorized managers of above certain level
Right.
can access the relevant contract.
Right. So you can provide access in the software that, I'm not talking about particular software, but usually, the software, usually current software which are available in the market, because the topic is about the e-contracts, so I have to talk more on the software e-contracts available than anything else. But in the you'll be given a login name and the password. So it is just like what you log in through your email or through Windows password. So you can authorize n number of persons who needs to have access to that particular software. So you can restrict it. You cannot at the same time,
Right, you can insert alerts. This contract about to expire in 3 months.
Exactly. I will come to that. That's again a critical, because I'll in fact test that now. Because most of the time we don't know where, because if we have the contracts in our repository, and who keeps a track of when the contract expires? If the contract is perpetual, it's good, well enough, fine. But most of the time the contract may expire 5 years down the line, 20 years down the line, or 15 years down the line. So with the people changing, who will keep a track of when the contract is expiring? So this particular software, the e-contract procedure should have a provision, because you'll be giving when is the effective date of the contract, and similarly what is the term of the contract, and when is the expiry date of the contract. So when you're providing all this requirements into the software, the software will be able to trigger a email alert, automatically trigger an email alert to the required. You can have number of persons to the say, legal head, to the legal department, to the commercial department, to the process particular project team, saying that this particular contract is going to expire 4 years down the 4 months down the line, or whenever you want. You can set the time period, or 2 years down the line, because most of the contract takes at least 2 to 3 months for negotiation, especially pricing negotiation and so you can set these alerts or time frames in your email triggers, so that you are aware of that such thing is coming. This again a good advantage that is there in this e-contract procedure, which Raj has highlighted. And because most of the time at least we have this problem prior to we are having bringing in this particular software into our system. I had the problem because every month my team has to send out a mail, legal team has to send out a mail to the process owners that these contracts are going to expire this month. And if I don't have that resource for one particular week, then the entire process gets delayed. So that's a big advantage of the e-contract process that we have. And so again, I briefly touched on the contract management, about when the expiry date and what are the major clauses in a contract, critical stuffs, and also you can also bring in the SOWs also into this software, which again will help you out in having the number of SOWs for a particular project, because most of the big clients like Citibank or World Bank, they will have one master service agreement for 10 years, 15 years, and under that, they will have thousands of SOWs. It becomes difficult for you to actually recognize the revenue also. The software to some extent, because when I joined one particular organization, and I was new at that stage, and I was given a task of find out the total revenue from each of the projects for this particular, for 1 year. So what I had to do was, at that time we didn't have that software, and I was in the early stage of my career as well. And I had to pull out each of the SOWs, see what is the value of each of the SOW, and put it in an Excel sheet and start adding that up. But that is not the right process. So most of the time, we need to know. This also helps in a backup for your finance team as well, to see what is the project timelines. You are expected to complete a project time, say by a specific time. This software will help you out in triggering alert, not only for the expiry, but completion of this particular project. And you should be, if required, you should be able to raise a change order so that you extend your SOW timelines. So I can keep on talking as far as the advantages of the software of this e-contracts are there. Of course, I don't know. Raj will highlight about the disadvantage of this. One is cost. Cost of this software that we will be talking. Of course, there are various free softwares also that are available. But again, the open source problems of open source and other things, which I don't want to cover at this point of time. But if you see, with the technology advancing, it is rather advisable to embrace technology than be far off from that. So that is, with that I would like to wrap up this session saying that, advantages are more higher than, the disadvantages of the e-contract process. So e-contract at all times, every time will be useful to the entire organization, whether it be the legal department, commercial department, or the functional department. You cannot, so once you are used to it, because if you are not aware of the e-contract process, you don't know and you get used to the traditional email technology. But once you get used to this software technology, I am sure that it will be very difficult for you. You will be addicted to it, and it will be very difficult for you to come out of that, software. So that is why we should rather embrace new technology than be far off from that. So, any questions? I'm open.
Any software which is freely available for any of these purposes?
Yeah, maybe. I'll tell you. Maybe we will exchange few emails. and tell you what are the free software that are available. Rahul? Oh, sorry, Vishal.
Do you have any software for demo?
You will get in touch with my sales team. I'm sorry. I'm a hardcore legal guy.
Okay, thank you very much. We do have some time, so if anybody has any kinds of questions, feel free to ask. I think there are enough people in the audience also who can answer, share. Or we can break for lunch, or I can share some